Ben,
Jacob,
how you doing?
good. How are you doing?
I am good. I am good.
Nice.
Uh, Chapter 9.
Chapter 9. I was gonna say that we're going through at the Chabad over here. We're going through Shari Chud Ve'emunah, and I there was a copy of uh, Steinsaltz Tanya,
Mhm.
and I really liked it. Like I picked it up and I read through that and
Right.
during the class, and it was pretty good.
Rabbi Steinsaltz was a heavy hitter.
Uh-huh.
I'm a
Yes.
big fan. It's
Yeah,
fun.
I never read through his edition, so I mean, I'm
I
I'm
have not.
curious now.
Um, it's it's funny. He's mostly known as a Talmudic scholar,
Right.
and um, a lot of people, including within Chabad, are often very surprised to find out that he was a Chabad Chassid.
Mm-hmm.
But as an Israeli teenager, he, from I believe a mostly secular family, he became religious through Chabad,
Yeah.
and he was very close with the Rebbe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember seeing the Steinsaltz like Talmud, like the Koran edition. As I knew about that, and I had a vague idea of who Steinsaltz was, and I wasn't sure, but I wasn't sure his background. And then I remember, I think I'm telling this right, but I think I went. I found that he had an edition on Sipurei Masiot of Rabbi Nachman because I was looking into that, and I was like, "That's interesting." Like I didn't figure that like this guy that writes on the Talmud will have kabbalistic tales. And I looked it up, and I saw what you were just describing. That Eddie was like more connected to Chabad, or like a Chabad Chassid, really.
Yeah, no, he was definitely a Chabad Chassid, and people don't actually think of him as like a proper Chabad Chassid for some weird reason. Um, Despite the fact, I mean, he was 100% Chabad. He was very close to the Rebbe. The
Yeah.
Rebbe, in fact, encouraged him to do the Steinsaltz Talmud, and so before the Steinsaltz Talmud, there was a horrible translation. You can still some people unfortunately still use, especially in academic circles, called the Sensino edition,
Sincere.
uh, which was an attempt to translate the Talmud word for word without any interpolations,
Mm-hmm.
which is an absolute disaster. Um, and so when he came out with the Steinsaltz, it was quite controversial. But after the Steinsaltz came out as a response to the Steinsaltz, and the criticisms of the Steinsaltz is when the Art Scroll came out, and the Art Scroll was the work of a much, much larger staff. Um, uh, and Because Steinsaltz, I mean, basically it was just him,
Yeah.
right? Um, I think, I think, uh, I think Art Scroll had like at least two people translating each Masechta, each volume actually, and several of the Masechtot are in several volumes.
Mm-hmm.
So um, yeah, the Steinsaltz is, I mean, it's a monumental work that had a huge impact. And frankly, without the Steinsaltz, I don't think there ever would have been an art scroll. And without the art scroll, I can't say 100% for sure, but I would say 99% for sure. Um, Daf Yomi could not be as large as it is now.
Right. Yeah. Much makes it much more accessible.
Yeah, even the Blue Book. So there was a controversy on Twitter a little while back because somebody said she read the Gospel of Matthew in the original Hebrew, and people were making fun of it, of her saying that, and
Because there is no original. Oh, because it is written.
well, yeah, I mean, what she meant was reconstructed and whatever, right?
Okay.
So so there's this from Twitter. There's and it tends to be actually quite funny. And so somebody on from Twitter put up a picture of the blue arts of a blue art scroll Talmud, and said, I love reading the Talmud in the original Hebrew, because the blue editions. Have you seen the blue art scrolls? Yeah. So there's the red art scroll and there's the blue art scroll.
I know the red Schonstein.
Right.
Okay.
So
what's the blue?
This is the red art scroll.
Blue is Hebrew only.
Blue is Hebrew only.
Right? Okay.
And part of the funny thing is, part of the reason sometimes, like me, you will buy the blue as opposed to buying the red is you kind of sort of want to not lose at least some of your skills. Like, and so it was a hilarious tweet, I thought. But it's one of those jokes. I think I retweeted it with a joke only two people on Twitter will get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it had its audience.
It had me.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking through, considering buying Mikrot Gdolot. I found a Twitter thread that was like in English talking about like which one is better, Art School, Oz Ve'adar, Zecher Chinuch, Oz, a bunch of them.
I mean, when I last looked, I wanted to get the Bar Ilan University. I believe Bar Ilan is putting one out. Either Bar Ilan or one of the universities in Eretz Yisrael is putting one out.
Okay.
But I mean, the Oz V'Hadar, that's the traditional one.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sure the art scroll is very good. Although I think Rabbi Mullet mentioned, maybe it wasn't the art scroll. I don't know who it was, but somebody had censored a particular Rashbam.
Yeah, it's Art Scroll censored it. That one on Bereshit, yeah, that's in the Twitter thread. So now I know everything. I think Oz V'Hadar, it might be missing too. I'm not sure. There's another version that's missing.
Oz V'Hadar?
Maybe not. Let's say just Art Scroll for sure, though.
That's, I mean, the temerity to censor a Rashbam. Who the hell do you think you are? Yeah. Like, I still don't understand how somebody has the chutzpah to censor a Rashbam.
Mm-hmm.
With that, you want to get started?
Sure.
Should I go first or you want to go first?
I think I can go first. Okay. Hauvai achai v're'ai asher kenafshi. My beloved ones, my brethren and friends who are unto me like my soul. Wait. Something's... I should have prepared before.
Reading glasses are important.
באתי כמזכיר ומעורר ישנים, בתרדמת הבלי הבלים. I come herewith as one who reminds and awakens those who sleep the slumber of vanities. ולפקוח עיני העברים. And to open up the eyes of the blind. יביטו לראות, להיות כל ישעם וחפצם ומגמתם לכל בהם חיי רוחם. Let them look and see to it that all their striving, longing, and aiming in everything on which the life of their spirits depend should be bound up. במקור מים חיים חיי החיים. In the divine source of the living waters, the fountainhead of all life, כל ימי חייהם מנפש ועד בשר. Throughout all their days of all their lives, and with respect to both the soul and to the flesh. דיינו, כל מילי דעלמא ועסקי פרנסה לא יהיו כאילו דעבדין לגרמהו. I.e., in all mundane matters and in the means by which one earns one's livelihood, one should not be like those who do everything for their own sake or for the sake of this world only. ולא יהיה בית ישראל ככלל הגויים. And let not the house of Israel be like all the other nations, like all the other Gentiles. דזנין ומפרנסין ומוקרין לנשיהו ובניהו מאהבה. Who feed, provide for, and esteem their wives and children out of self-love. כי מי כעמך ישראל גוי אחד בארץ כתיב, for it is written, who is like your people Israel, a unique nation on earth. דיינו, שגם בענייני ארץ לא יפרידו, ייפרדו, מאחד האמת חס ושלום. This means that even in mundane or earthly matters, they will not, heaven forbid, forfend, I don't know why I use it forfend instead of forbid, separate them from God's true unity. להעיד עדות שקר וחס ושלום בקריאת שמע ערב ובוקר בעיניים סגורות. To bear false witness, heaven forbid, while reciting the Shema every evening and morning with closed eyes. What does he mean here, to bear false witness? To really not really recognize the unity? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. So when we say Shema Israel Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Hasidic Taich is Achad u'meyuchad u'yachid, right? God is one and unique and alone, right? So other than God, ein od milvado, right? Yeah. There is nothing that has an existence. God is existence itself, right? So it's one thing to be like the other nations and live in this world as if this world has a real existence. Mm-hmm. But for Israel, right, we are called to a higher task, to live a spiritual life, which recognizes that this world is Alma de Shikra, and that we have to have a kesher to Alma de Kashuta, the world of truth.
The Kashuta? What's the Kashuta?
Kashuta is Emet.
Emet? Oh, yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's putting the emphasis, just like calling Israel a nation of priests, to the emphasis that we should have. The hierarchical emphasis, right? Where like other nations maybe might emphasize other aspects. Like this is something that is specifically relevant to us,
right? Because he's saying, look, it's very nice and well that an ordinary human being Like there's nothing wrong with it. You go to work so that you can eat and so that you can um, uh, feed your family and everything nice and make this world be as good and nice as it is. That's all well and fine.
Mm-hmm.
But as Jews, we're called to something beyond that.
Okay, השם אחד בדלת רוחות ובשמיים ממעל ובארץ מתחת. Saying, we say this in the Shema, God is one in the four directions and in the heavens above and on earth below. ובפיקוח עיני העברים, while is the eyes of the blind are opened. And here the Alter Rebbe addresses those whose eyes are blinded by corporal matters. Itayef enecha bo ve'inenu chas v'shalom. Can you, quoting, can you close your eyes upon him as if he is no more? Heaven forbid. So let's read this. This means to say that immediately upon opening his eyes, after reciting the Shema, such a person can view the world as if it were a self-sufficient entity, separate and distinct from its creator. Accordingly, moreover, he conducts his affairs in a selfish manner rather than for the sake of heaven. So this is kind of like having I forgot the term. What's the term for when you know something but you do something else?
Well, most people refer to that as cognitive dissonance, but that's not exactly
right. It's not that. Well, it feels like, okay, so אחד בפה אחד בלב maybe.
Yeah.
More so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, really, it's hypocrisy, but
Mm-hmm.
there is an aspect of sometimes you know something, and it hasn't been incorporated. It's not da'at. It's not part of you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's that's definitely a good point. I mean, because he talks about, yeah, there's different levels to this, right? Like what I mentioned maybe is a little bit more an intentional way of doing that. But what you're saying is like, yeah, you might not be at the level where you can actually understand how to do that. And I can definitely, that's the one that hopefully I can relate to more than.
Yeah, no, ultimately that is what we mean when we say Shvirat HaKelim is only by the midot, not the intellect, right?
Yeah.
Because we believe ultimately Shvirat HaKelim did not take place in Chabad, and that is the point of Chabad, is to make the midot shalem through moach shalit al halev, through those intellectual attributes which are still whole, in effect, what do I want to say? Glistening, brightening up, shining upon the midot, the emotions.
Okay. אך בזאת יעוות לנו? יאות לנו. Rather, this approach shall be befitting us. להיות בעיות כל עסקנו במילי דעלמא לא לגרמהו. That all our involvement in mundane affairs should be conducted not for its own sake. כי אם להחיות נפשות חלקי אלוקות, but in order to animate souls, i.e. to provide sustenance for fellow Jews whose souls are veritably, so to speak, portions of God. ולמלאות מחסוריהם בחסד חינם, and to supply what they lack out of gratuitous kindness. שבזה אנו מדמין הצורה ליוצרה, השם אחד. In this way, we make the form, the soul, resembles, or our soul, resembles he who formed it, God who is one. Hasher chesed el kol hayom, chesed shel emet, for the chesed of God endures throughout the day, a true chesed. להחיות העולם ומלואו בכל רגע ורגע. That animates, this chesed animates the universe and all that fills it at every single moment.
Right. So because true chesed is a kindness you do, not because anybody deserves it or because of anything you'll get out of it, but simply in order to because you are a chassid, because you are giving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in a very real sense, all of creation, right? Chesed el kol hayom, right? All of creation does not deserve God's kindness, nor does it receive it for anything that God would receive out of it, right? But simply because that is the nature of God Himself, to is chesed, is loving kindness.
Yeah. Okay. רק שאשתו ובניו של אדם קודמים לכל על פי התורה. It is only that according to the Torah, man's wife and children take precedence over all others.
Right. So it shouldn't be, what I'm giving, I'm working to feed my children, right? Because they're my children, because I expect to get something from them, or because I love them, especially because they're my children. No, the halacha is you, as a parent, have a primary obligation to take care of your kids before anybody else's kids, right? Mm-hmm. And that really should be the only reason why you do more kindness to your own kids than anybody else's kids.
Right. It kind of reminds me of this teaching that I liked about, I think it's a verse in reference to Shabbat. You should keep the Shabbat and you should
fear your parents. Shabtotai tishmeru aviv ve'imot hir'au. Let me look it up.
It's like, you can look that up. That's actually not what I was referencing. I was thinking.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's the one about keeping the Shabbat and doing that for your wife, children, your animals, right?
So before I forget, the verse is Ish imo va'aviv tira'u ve'et shabtotai tishmeru Avni Hashem Elokecha. But so right. You were thinking of something else, yes?
Yes, I was thinking of something else, and now I can't find it.
You mean in the Ten Commandments? It says you should keep the Sabbath with your household and your animals and your slave. Yeah, that's in the Ten Commandments.
It's in the Ten Commandments. Okay, great. It shows you how my memory works. So that one, there's a certain sequence to it that kind of sounds weird, because I think it's that it feels a little weird, because I think maybe it's I was trying to pull it up, but it's like maybe it starts with your wife, and maybe it's the donkey then, and then it's the ger. So it's like a sequence of what is this, like, you know, it can sound maybe more controversial than it might be. But so one of the commentary that I saw was that it really, the sequence, the hierarchy there is the hierarchy of who you have more responsibility or influence on. So your animal, for example, and again, it depends really on what the sequence is there, but the animal is like, that's something that you really need to, like, it needs more help than other members of your community. Because it really, like, you influence if it works or not. Right? So yeah, so there's something about like why is the ger after the animal? So there's something about the responsibility and how can you affect like the bema you can affect much more than the ger or something like that.
Mhm. I mean, yeah, this is אתה ובנך אביך עבדך. It's funny. So your daughter is less likely to listen to you than your son. Makes sense.
I wonder where is that teaching from? What if it's a mefresh?
Lo yet,
Mhm.
but it's in Exodus 20.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, we are back. So chutz mi tzadikim
Shabador.
שבדור שהן קודמים לבניהם, except for the tzaddikim of the generation who take precedence over one's children. So I think I saw the note there above that it was talking. This is at a time where there were Rabbi Mendel Wittbesker and Avram Kosler, right? The people that went to Israel. So probably this is talking about why we should care about what they're doing. So that's the context. וצדיקים שבארץ ישראל קודמים לצדיקים שבחוץ לארץ. Moreover, the tzadikim in the land of Israel take precedence over the tzadikim in the diaspora. לבד, מזאת שלא הניחו כמותן בחוץ לארץ. Apart from the fact that they did not leave anyone in the diaspora comparable to themselves. ודי למבין. This will suffice for the discerning. So he's saying like they're great. There's nobody here that can match them.
Well, no. So Dai Lemevin, he is saying, he's saying that these people that he's talking about, like there's nobody to compare to them. So
right.
even if it wasn't the fact that they were living in Eretz Israel, right? But when you say Dai Lemevin, it means okay. To the degree you have Kabbalistic understandings, you can try to understand this better. And if you do understand, that's great. And if you're like the rest of us, then okay.
Okay. So about that. Al ken hauvai achai. Therefore, my beloved ones, my brethren, שימו נא לבבכם לאלה הדברים הנאמרים בקצרה מאוד. Direct your hearts to these words which are expressed very briefly. ואם ירצה השם, פה אל פה, דבר בם בארוכה. And face to face, please God, I will speak of them at length. אך היות כל עיקר עבודת השם, ביתים הללו, בעקבות משיחה, היא עבודת הצדקה. How in these times when the approaching footsteps of Mashiach are close upon us, the principal service of God is the service of charity. כמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, אין ישראל נגאלין אלא בצדקה. As our sages of blessed memory said, Israel will be redeemed only through charity. Wow.
That is a large note. Okay.
From the Rebbe. ולא אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, תלמוד תורה שקול כנגד גמילות החסדים. It's interesting that he puts it in quotes. Our sages of blessed memory did not say that the study of Torah is equivalent to the performance of acts of loving kindness. Except in their own days. Okay, so they did say that, but in their own days.
Yeah.
But it was applicable to their own days. שתלמוד תורה היה עיקר העבודה אצלם, ועל כן היו חכמים גדולים, תנאים ואמוראים. For with them, the principal area of divine service was the study of the Torah, which is why at that time there were great scholars, תנאים and אמוראים. מה שאין כן בעקבות משיחה. However, in a time when the approaching footsteps of Mashiach are close upon us, שנפלה סוכת דוד עד בחינת רגליים ועקביים, שהיא בחינת עשייה, as the sukkah of David has fallen to a level of feet or heels, i.e., to the level of Asiya. Which is kind of, I guess, he's kabbalistically, this is like the lower world, and I see it's connected to kind of like the malchut. And there is no way of truly cleaving in onto it, i.e., to the Shekhinah. ולהפכה חשוכה לנאורה dila delay, and transforming the darkness of the world into its light. כי אם בבחינת עשייה גם כן, except you can only do this, or you can mainly do this now through a corresponding category of action, and not through intellect and speech alone, as in Torah study. She'i ma'aseh tzedakah, namely, this action is the act of charity. So I guess the question here that was kind of implicit in how I was reading it, is he saying that the only way to do this now is through action, charity, or is this the main way of doing it?
He's saying that this is the work that now needs to be done, and therefore there's a specific emphasis to it. Now, that doesn't mean chas v'shalom, right? And this was one of the big fights, was that people were saying Hasidim put too much emphasis on particular mitzvot, and how can you do that, and by what right do you decide that one mitzvah is more important than another? But the fact is that we see that people who are medayek in particular mitzvot, and as guided by their rabbis, tend to become the people who are the most observant of all of the Torah. And this is something that the Chatam Sofer famously said, which is that if the Hasidim had not become when people think ultra-Orthodox, they think Hasidim. When they think of who keeps all of the Torah as much as possible, they think of Hasidim. And so we see that B'Poel, the fears that some of the opponents of the Hasidic movement had during their time did not come to fruition, thank God.
Yeah. כידוע למשכילים, שבחינת עשייה באלוקות היא בחינת השפעת והמשכת החיות למטה מטה למען דלת למגרמיה כלום. As is known to the scholarly, action with reference to divinity is the diffusion and downward flow of vitality to the lowest depths, to he who is nothing of his own. Right, we were talking about this. וכל הזובח את יצרו בזה, whoever sacrifices his impulse in this respect, with respect to charity, ופותח את ידו ולבבו, and opens his hand and heart, התקפיה סטרא אחרא, thereby causes the other, the evil side of the universe to be subjugated. ומהפך חשוכה לאור השם יתברך, השוכן עלינו בבחינת עשייה בעקבות משיחה. And converts the darkness into the light of God, blessed be he, who, in the time when the footsteps of Mashiach are close upon us, dwells over us in a state of action. ויזכה לראות עין בעין בשוב השם ציון, וכו'. Moreover, this person will merit to behold eye to eye God returning to Zion.
As it says in Isaiah.
Nice.
Short letter.
He did say that it's going to be short.
Okay. Weiter.
Weiter.
Achar dirshat shalomam habachayim. Right? After saying hi like you should, Petach davarai ya'ir ozen shoma'at tochachat chayim. May my opening words rouse the ear that hears the life-giving admonition. Asher hochiach Hashem chayim al yedei nevi'o va'amar chastei Hashem ki lo tam. I don't know if during his time this was a famous song, but it has definitely become a very famous song. You can go look in on YouTube for it. Chastei Hashem ki lo tamnu. It is through the kindness of God that we have not ceased to be. And this is how God admonished us through his prophets, Jeremiah, in Lamentations.
Yeah.
So it says kilotamnu, we have not ceased. It should have said that they have not ceased. Why is it we have not ceased? כמו שאומרים, כי לא תמו חסדיך. We say in another place in the liturgy, your kindnesses have not ended. ויובן על פי מה שכתוב בזוהר הקדוש. אית חסד ואית חסד, אית חסד עולם ואית חסד אילה דהו רב חסד. So this can be understood through what the Zohar says is that there's chesed and there's chesed. There's two types of chesed. There's the chesed olam, right? Which is a world-like chesed. And then there's rav chesed. There's a superior kind called boundless chesed or great chesed. Ki hine mudat zot haTorah nikrat oz. So when we refer to the Torah, we refer to it as oz, right? As strength. Shehu lashon gevura, which is in a sense the opposite of chesed, gevura, right? וכמו שאמרו חכמינו זכרם לברכה, תרי"ג מצוות נאמרו למשה מסיני מפי הגבורה, right? So that language explains, right? The mitzvot were given to Moses at Sinai from the mouth of Gevurah, right?
Interesting. Where does it say that? What Talmud?
Is Makot 23b.
Makot. I didn't even know there was a tractate.
There is a tractate Makot, although technically most opinions are that Makot is only a continuation of tractate Sanhedrin, and it's not a tractate by itself. But anyway.
That's an interesting idea. I don't think I've ever encountered that the Tariag mitzvot were declared from the mouth of Gvura.
Right. So anytime you have a binding or an enumeration, right? So that's the left side. That is Gevura, is whenever you have Gedarim Umidot, right? And on the right side, we say Melech Poretz Geder, right? That a king breaks boundaries. So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It says Taryag Mitzvot, right? Especially when we're talking about the 613 commandments, right? Those particularly, and halacha is a aspect of binding and gevura.
Okay.
Got it?
I understand that level.
Dichtiv mimino esh dat lama, right? Like it says that from his right hand a Torah of fire, esh dat, right? The fire of Torah or religion or ways of doing things, right? And esh is a fire is gevura, perish. That is to me. Torah mekora v'shorsha hu rak chastei Hashem המכונים בשם ימין, right? So when we talk about the source of the Torah, it comes from God's kindness, which is the right side. דהיינו, המשכת בחינת אלוהותו יתברך והארה מאור אין סוף ברוך הוא, right? That which brings forth the divine light and radiance from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, El ha'olamot elyonim v'tachtonim, to those worlds above and below, al yedei ha'adam hamamshich ha'or al atzmo, through man who is drawing down this infinite light onto himself, b'kiyum ramach mitzvot aseh shehen ramach evarim demalka, right? Through fulfilling the 248 positive commandments, which are the 248 organs of the king, as it were. Perush ramach kelim ulevushim laha'ara. נראה צריך להיות להערה. Okay? מאור אין סוף ברוך הוא המלובש בהם. Right? So these are 48 vessels and garments which bring forth this light from Ein Sof Baruch Hu. ומאור זה יומשך לו דחילו רחימו בכל מצווה כנודע. And through this light is what draws down the awe and love in each commandment. רק שהמשכה זו נתלבשה תחילה במידת גבורתו של הקדוש ברוך הוא המכונה בשם אש.
Right. Okay.
Right. First, this downflow is vested in God's attribute of Gevurah, which can be referred to as
so. Right. So I understood the note there was also helpful. It was because he was saying that Dr. Rebbe is before, I'll just say it, that he was anticipating a question of like, you're telling me like you're always telling me the Torah comes from kindness and benevolence, but now you're telling me it's from the mouth of Gevurah. What is this?
Yes.
It's interesting. So he's talking about the idea of, which is related to the higher idea of tzimtzum of gvura shebechesed. So the source of the Torah is kindness, right? It's chesed.
Chesed shebegvura.
Right, but the source itself is chesed. It comes from kindness. But in order to, so the mitzvot are like little packets of light.
Yeah.
They have to be constrained.
Exactly.
So, and you can't experience it. So you gotta have the mitzvot for like here's this aspect of kindness and here's this aspect.
And that's why practically, right? Even though there's no aspect of time by God and godliness, right, before creation, but practically when we talk within creation, Abraham begets Isaac.
Interesting. I haven't thought about that.
Yep. שהיא בחינת צמצום האור והחיות הנמשכות מאור אין סוף ברוך הוא. Right? So, which reflects a contraction of the light and life force that issue from the infinite light. כדי שתוכל להתלבש במעשה המצוות, thus enabling it to become vested in the performance of the commandments. שרובן ככולן הן בדברים חומריים, right? Because almost all of the mitzvot deal with things which are physical material manifestations. כציצית ותפילין וקורבנות וצדקה, right? All of these things, they involve actual physical matters. ואף מצוות שהן ברוחניות האדם, כמו יראה ואהבה. And even those commandments which are appear to be mostly and essentially spiritual, like love and fear. אף על פי כן הם בחינת גבול ומידה, ולא בבחינת אין סוף כלל. Right? There's still things which are limited and measured if for no other reason than by the fact that human beings are doing them, right? So they've already gone through a measure of gevura. Ki ahava rabba laHashem bli ketz ugevul umida ein ha'adam יכול לסובלה בליבו ולהיות קיים בגופו אפילו רגע. Because a true and intense love of God is so great that we would not be able to experience it even 1 minute and to continue to live. וכמאמר רבותינו זכרם לברכה, שבשעת מתן תורה, שהייתה התגלות אלוקותו יתברך, ואור אין סוף ברוך הוא בבחינת דיבור והתגלות, פרחה נשמתן, right? Like the sages explained that during the giving of the Torah, Matan Torah, right? When there was such a revelation of godliness that at each word, all the people were died and had to be resurrected, right? והנה, לפי שהמצוות ניתנו לנו על ידי התלבשות במידת גבורה וצמצום בהערה. Now, because the commandments were given through gevura and contractions, לכן רוב המצוות יש להם שיעור מצומצם. And for this reason, every mitzvah has particular methods, right? Like we say, Elu hen hamitzvot she'en lahem shi'ur, right? They don't have a midah. There's only a few particular mitzvot which don't have a particular midah, right? Kamo orach hatzitziot yud bet godlin, right? There's a minimum length of tzitzit. Less than that, it's not tzitzit. Tefillin etzba'in al etzba'in umeruba'ot davka, right? They have to be at least 2 finger breadths by 2 finger breadths, right? And necessarily they have to be square, or at least rectangular. The haluvav arba terachim, right? And when we talk about the lulav of the 4 midot, of the 4 species on Sukkot, it has to at least be 4 handbreadths tall. The hasukah sheva tefachim, right? And the sukkah has to be tall enough for a person to sit in it. The shofar tefach, and the shofar needs to at least be 1 handbreadth long. The mikvah arba'im sa, right? And a mikvah has to be 40 measures at least. V'chen the korbanot yesh lahem shi'ur mitzumtzam lizman, right? And even sacrifices, they have particular times, right? Kamo kavasim b'nei shana. It says you should have bring 1-year-old sheep, ve'elim b'nei shtayim, and rams that are 2 years old, ufarim, right? Oxen or whatever. V'chen b'maaseh hatzedakah u'mgemulut chasadim b'mamono. The same applies normally by acts of charity and giving money. Even though these are essentials upon which the entire world rests. And it says that the world is built through chesed. Right? That nevertheless, a person should not give more than 1/5 of his income, right? Umaser lamida beinonit, and that's the most. Most people should be giving 10%. Chesed olam, and this is called a normal amount of chesed, the way of chesed, which in a sense, chesed olam also means an eternal one, right? Because it is that which goes along with the worldly measure. Perush chesed el kol hayom, right? The chesed of God is all day long. Hamitlabesh ba'olamot elyonim b'tachtonim, in the way that it's vested into the world. Al yedei itaruta delatata, through an awakening from below. Ki mitzvat hatzdaka v'chesed she'osim b'nei adam ze im ze, right? I.e., by the precepts of charity and kindness that people practice with each other. Ulefi shaha'olam hu b'bechinat gevul u'midah, And because the world is created in a finite and measured manner, right? Whatever that means, it's 500 years between the earth and the first rakia, the first heaven. Similarly, each rakia has Veshit alfe shnei ahave alma, right? And it says that the world exists for 6,000 years total. This is one of the things I keep on saying. Mashiach only has 214 years to go, right? 16 years left, 15 years, right? לכן ניתן שיעור ומידה גם כן למצוות הצדקה והחסד שבתורה. So the mitzvah of tzedakah needs to have a shiur, כמו לשאר מצוות התורה, like the other mitzvot. היינו דווקא לשומר התורה ולא שר ממנה ימין ושמאל אפילו כמלוא נימה. Right? So what are we talking about when we say that this is the way a person should act, that he should give 10% or at most 20% to tzedakah? That's if he's the person who does everything correctly and he doesn't even make even a tiny bit of a mistake. Let's say somebody is human and he doesn't do things perfectly. Not sure who that would be. Maybe me. But after the fact that it's been distorted, made crooked in a way, migraot bakodesh ha'elyon, right? So thus diminishing the supreme holiness. שגרה ערכו בבחינת המשכתו, מה שהיה יכול להמשיך בבחינת אלוקותו והארת האור, מאור אינסוף ברוך הוא, אילו היה שומר התורה ומקיימה כהלכתה. Right? So he hasn't brought forth the eternal light that this world needs as it should be. הרי מעוות זה לא יוכל לתקון. This type of distortion can't be fixed. כי אם בהמשכת האור העליון שלמעלה מהעולמות ואינו מתלבש בהן. Right? So then he has to bring forth and fix things through a level of transcendent light that is beyond the normal way of doing things. Hanikra chesed ila'a v'rav chesed. That which is superior kindness or great chesed, right? Lefi sheme'ir u'mitpashet b'bechinat ein sof bli gvul u'midah. Right?
So this is talking about someone that does repentance. This is like here's how you can.
Right. So he says he's saying, okay, we have the world as it should be, and in the world as it should be, right? So you do things as they should be. There's a shiur to tzedakah.
Right.
But if you made a mistake and the cup is half full, you have to bring forth a flow from something that is beyond that which is normal. Right? So this is he has to bring things an extra measure from something that is beyond it. From the peak of all rungs to the end of all rungs. כשהאדם ממשיכו למטה במעשיו בהתערותא דלתתא. Now, when man draws it downward by means of his deeds and by an arousal from below, אזי אור עליון זה מאיר ומתפשט תוך העולמות ומתקן כל מעוות וכל מגרעות ניתנו בקודש העליון. Right? in this manner, he's able to rectify those things that he messed up in the higher worlds and the holiness. ומחדש אורן וטובן ביתר שאת ויתר עוז בבחינת אור חדש ממש. Right? So he's able to bring a renewing light and goodness from something that is truly above and new. ולכן אמרו במקום שבעלי תשובה עומדים וכו'. And that's why the sages say, in a place that truly repentant people stand, a perfectly righteous person cannot stand, because the Baal Teshuvah has to bring forth a light that is from beyond that which a tzaddik gamor can bring.
Right.
Vehine ikar hateshuvah hu balev. Right? Now the essence of being penitent, it's in the heart itself. Ki al yedei hacharata me'umka deliba me'orer omek or ha'elyon hazeh. What penitence truly is that you regret your mistakes from the depth of your heart, right? And you arouse a corresponding depth of the supreme light. אך כדי להמשיכו להאיר בעולמות עליונים ותחתונים, צריך התערותא דלתתא ממש בבחינת מעשה. But in order to bring this light down from that which is above, there has to be an awakening from below in action as well. Right? How does a person effectuate that material aspect? Through giving tzedakah. The kamo shahadam mashpia rav chesed. For just as a man dispenses rav chesed in infinite abundance of kindness, perush chas the late. Right? So when we say chesed, right? So chesed can be understood as chas the late, that he has chas, that he has a kindness to dalet, the late,
right?
He who does not have. Right?
Dal, yeah, dal in Hebrew.
Yeah.
So it's dal shuman means chalav dal shuman. It's like milk, low fat milk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The hainu ledal ve'evyon, to he who is utterly destitute. The late lemegarme klum, he doesn't have anything. The eino noten gavul umidal intinato v'hashpa'ato. Right? So when he gives, then there's nothing that sets the measure of his giving. Right? This is somebody who's completely undeserving. Whatever you give him is beyond what he deserves.
Right.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashpia oro v'tuvo b'b'chinat chesed ilah hanikra rav chesed. That's how God acts with us, right? He gives in an infinite manner beyond anything which we deserve. Hameir b'b'chinat ein sof bli gavul u'midah toch ha'olamot elyonim v'tachtonim. Right? That light which shines throughout all the worlds. Kulam hem b'b'chinat the late etzlo yitbarach. That anything in relation to God is something that has nothing, that it doesn't exist. It's as if it were nothing, right? The late lahon amigar mehon klum, that they don't have anything from themselves. V'kola the kamei kela chashive, right? And all of them before God, it's as if they don't exist. ועל ידי זה נתקנו כל הפגמים שפגם האדם בעוונותיו למעלה בעולמות עליונים ובתחתונים. And through doing this, he's going to fix all of the horrible things that he has caused to happen in the upper and lower world. וזהו שכתוב עשות צדקה ומשפט Nifchar Lashem Mizabach, right? God prefers tzedakah and justice over zabach, the sacrifices, offerings. Right? לפי שהקורבנות הם בבחינת שיעור ומידה גבול.
Right, that's what he was saying. Yeah.
These are things which, okay, if you can bring, they have their fixed amount. מה שאין כן בצדקה שיוכל לפזר בלי גבול לתקן עוונותיו. Right? With charity, a person can do charity without limit. ומה שאמרו המבזבז אל יבזבז יותר מחומש. What our sages instructed us, Ketubot 50a, that a person should not give more than 20%. היינו דווקא במי שלא חטא. This is somebody who's not sinned. It's not a measure of trying to fix something. או שתיקן חטא בסיגופים בתעניות, right? Or he was able to otherwise rectify his sins, כראוי, right? לתקן כל הפגמים למעלה, to fix all the problems he had caused. אבל מי שצריך לתקן נפשו עדיין, somebody who still needs a remedy for his soul. פשיטה דלה גרעה רפואת הנפש מרפואת הגוף, right? Make a קל וחומר. If you're sick, you're allowed to spend as much money as you need to find a doctor who can help you. Oh, how much more so by a spiritual remedy. She'ein kesef nachshav, right? Money is not what matters. L'chol asher la'ish yeten ba'ad nafsho kativ. Like scripture tells us, a person will give all of his money for his life.
Right, so he's saying that there is no limit. And if you're somebody that needs to do repentance, and
right,
that means a lot of people.
Yeah,
most people. It's there's no limit to how much tzedakah you can give.
I mean, let's
now correct me if I'm wrong. It might be related to your answer. I think that is that a Chabad specific halacha or custom? I don't know how to.
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. In fact, if anything, Chabad is one of the few people who bother to mention that there are rules. There's not a lot of rabbis telling people. There are not a lot of people you have to worry about. they're giving too much tzedakah. But he's explaining. Okay, so if somebody needs a practical tikkun nefesh, he should give. Right?
Yeah.
והנה, מידת חסד זו, בלי גבול ומידה נקראת על שמו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, חסדי Hashem. And we see that eternal charity, that's called by God himself, God's name, Chasdei Hashem, the kindnesses of God. K'dichtiv v'chesed Hashem me'olam va'ad olam, right? Because it says that the kindness of God is not just olam, right? It's me'ad olam, me'olam va'ad olam, right? It's even beyond time. Ki hagam shekol Israel yet hem rachmanim v'gomlei chasad. For though all Israel are compassionate and practice kindly deeds, baram yesh gavul u'midah l'rachamei ha'adam. Human beings have a measure to how kind they can be. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu nikra Ein Sof Baruch Hu, since He is infinite. Ulamidotav Ein Sof, and therefore His attributes are infinite. K'dichtiv ki lo chalu rachamav, like it says, His mercies do not cease. V'zehu she'amar hanavi achar hachurban v'hagalut Chasdei Hashem ki lo tamnu. This is what it means that in Lamentations, Jeremiah says, it is the kindness of God which we have not ended, right? Perush, that it means, lefi shelo tamnu, because we are not perfect. Ki lo tamnu, right? We are not perfect. We tam, right? From lashon
Mhm.
right? We are
Yeah.
not perfect. שאין אנו תמימים ושלמים בלי שום חטא ופגם בנפש בעולמות עליונים, right? So he's giving a taich, right? It is God's kindness that we are not perfect, which allows us to, in fact, go beyond the gavul. Al ken tzrichin anu lehitnaheg b'chasdei Hashem shehem bli gavul v'tachlit. Therefore, we have to involve ourselves in the kindness of God, the eternal ones, that which is beyond. Kedei la'orer aleinu rahamim v'chesed ila'ah, shehu rav chesed v'rahamim bli gavul v'tachlit. Right? In order to awaken another worldly and transcendent light and compassion, right, which is infinite. Like it says, his mercies never cease. V'zehu she'amru Rabbeinu Zichronam l'Racha, Ein Israel nig'alin ela b'tzedakah. And this is what it means when the rabbis say that Israel will be redeemed through tzedakah. Sheyasu gam im yihu peturim medina. This refers to the charity that they will perform even if they are not legally obligated to do it, right? Ki ein ben David ba. So this is from Sanhedrin 97a. Mashiach, the son of David, will not come until the pocket will be empty of even the smallest coin. Okay. I'll read the note. Even if, heaven forfend, there will not be a solitary coin left in one's pocket, tzedakah will still be given. And if this boundless level of tzedakah that secures a complete atonement for our sins, for the sins of our people, after which they will immediately be redeemed. The Rebbe explains that the Alter Rebbe does not conclude the above mentioned quotation about the precondition of the coming of Mashiach, because it is quite possible that he did not want to write out the last words until the pocket will be empty of even the smallest coin. And this precondition of the sages can be fulfilled on the spiritual level by conducting oneself with the humility of the destitute. This could also explain why the Alter Rebbe does not say "Kashiyihu Peturim" when they are legally not obligated, but rather "Im Yihu Peturim" if they are legally not obligated.
So he's trying to soften it up a little bit.
Basically, he's trying to say it doesn't have to get to all that, to that ultimate point.
Mm-hmm. Is it only 12 epistles?
Oh no,
This is
there's
more.
a lot more. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're on 11 now. No,
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's 32.
Okay, I thought maybe previously we had one that had 12 epistles.
Yeah, most of the other. So Igarata. So Likutei Amarim has 56. Shar Yichud Ve'emunah has 13. Igeret HaTshuva has 13. And Kuntras Acharon has 9. It's
Right.
Igeret HaKodesh, which has 32.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we end it here? Or do you want to do another one? What's the?
Up to you. Are you up for another one?
How long is it?
Igeret HaKodesh
11
has
has 3
3
comments.
comments.
So it must be good.
Yeah. They don't usually get too many comments. It's not very long.
Okay. Let's do it.
You want to do it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go for it.
It's all you. Hello, Rabbi.
Hello. So, to להשכילך בינה, to enlighten you with understanding. כי לא זו הדרך ישכון אור השם, that not by this path will the light of God dwell within one. להיות חפץ בחיי בשרים ובני ומזוני, by desiring the life of flesh and children and sustenance. כי על זה אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, בטל רצונך מפני רצונו וכולי. For on our sages of blessed memory said, nullify your will out of deference to his will.
Which reminds me, did you guys finish Pirkei Avot?
No, I think we have probably one or two streams, and we're considering what to do next. Either Kuzari, Perek Chelek. I think those are on the table at the moment. דהיינו, שיהיה רצונו בטל במציאות, ולא יהיה לו שום רצון כלל בענייני עולם הזה כולם, הנכללים בבני חיי ומזוני. This means, not that one should set aside his own will because it does not coincide with God's will, but that from the outset, one's will should be so nullified that he has no desire whatsoever for any worldly matters that are incorporated within the 3 general categories of children, life, and sustenance.
Not to interrupt you too much, but you guys should consider doing Rabbi Nachman's stories.
I can suggest that. I was just starting to read those. I just read 7 Beggars, which is kind of cool, which is very nice. But yeah, I just started that. I'll float it with Chazi. וכמאמר, רבותינו, wait, can we read the note actually? Because I got confused by that. So he's saying that somebody's will should be completely set aside, so it doesn't.
Right. So he's saying batel retzoncha, right? It means you shouldn't be thinking really about your own things and your own self, right? That's right. So really, baneh, chaye, mezoneh, right? So the 3 major categories of things that a person cares about are mezoneh would be the material things, right? But chaye would be his personal health, and banim, children, would be his family and his relations, right? So that basically covers everything.
Right. Okay. וכמאמר רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, שעל כוחך אתה חי, one should thus live in the spirit of the teaching of our sages, of blessed memory, that against your will do you live. Right? You view those corporal aspects as being contrary to, the will of your soul. וביאור העניין, the clarification of this matter. הוא רק אמונה אמיתית ביוצר בראשית. This can be achieved only when there is an absolute belief in the Yotzer Bereshit. Why does he let's see. Literally, as in the opening words of the Aleinu prayer, this phrase refers to God as the one who formed the first beginnings of creation. However, in Kabbalistic terms, Reshit also connotes the Sfira called Chokhmah, wisdom. So the Alter Rebbe uses it here to allude to God as the one who created everything by means of Reshit, by means of Chokhmah. דיינו, שהבריאה יש בעין הנקראת ראשית חוכמה. This means that the creation of Yesh, that which exists out of the state of Ein, literally nothingness, which is called Reshit Chokhmah. והיא חוכמתו שאינה מושגת לשום נברא. i.e. the divine ספירה of חוכמה, which is not apprehensible to any created beings. הבריאה הזאת היא בכל עת ורגע. This creation occurs at every time and moment. שמתאבים כל הברואים יש מאין, at which all created beings come into being ex nihilo, יש מאין. מחוכמתו יתברך המחיה את הכל. Through God's wisdom, which animates everything. Okay. וכשיתבונן האדם בעומק הבנתו, now when a man will contemplate in the depths of his understanding, ויצייר בדעתו הווייתו, מאין בכל רגע ורגע ממש, and will moreover picture in his mind how he comes into being ex nihilo at every single moment. איך יעלה על דעתו כי רע לו? How can he entertain the thought that he is suffering? או שום ייסורים מבני חיי ומזוני, or has any affliction related to children, life, health, and sustenance, או שערי ייסורים בעולם, or whatever other worldly sufferings. הרי האין שהיא חוכמתו יתברך, ומקור החיים והטוב והעונג. For the Ein, which is God's Chokhmah, is the source of life, goodness, and delight. והוא העדן שמלמעלה מעולם הבא. It is the Eden that transcends the world to come. רק, מפני שאינו מושג, לכן נדמה לו רע או ייסורים. Except that because it is not apprehensible, one imagines that he is suffering or afflicted. אבל באמת אין רע יורד מלמעלה והכל טוב. In truth, however, no evil descends from above, and everything is good. רק שאינו מושג לגודלו ורב טובו. Though it is not apprehended as such because of its immense and abundant goodness. Right, so how's this, I guess I'll just ask this to ask, but how does that not conflict with the idea that God creates evil? So we're saying it's not creating evil, it's actually good?
No, well, okay, okay, called Rahmana Avid, Latav Avid. Everything that God creates is for the good. It's just that we don't understand why it is good, right? And in a sense, if we truly understood that everything that happens for a reason, and it is ultimately for the good, I mean, it goes back to what Rabbi Sachs said. Why is it that we can't understand the reasons for our suffering? Because if we did understand the reasons for our suffering, then we would accept it. And we'd be like, okay, that's fine, right? This is what needs to be. Yeah. Now, in the world as it exists, we accept that we don't get it, but it still hurts, and it needs to hurt, because we shouldn't accept it, because things shouldn't be this way to some degree. But that's because of the darkness. And once Yemaleh Haaretz Da'at, right, and we look back, we will see why it needed to be and why it needed to happen. And so back to my analogy that I give all the time, which is, what do you call a place where you take little kids to strap them down and hook them with needles and cut them open and bleed them and give them poisons and make them hurt and cry? Call it a children's hospital, right? And when you understand that why the reasons for it is, right, then the children's hospital seems like a good thing, but that shouldn't stop you from recognizing it's a bad thing that kids need operations and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's the same thing by recognizing that Hashem creates everything, and everything is precisely as it needs to be, while at the same time recognizing that we have certain work we have to do to make the world to be in a way that is different than it is now.
Okay. So he's talking here, at least here, he's emphasizing that.
Right here,
He's emphasizing a different aspect of how we need.
Zula Tova. Yeah.
Right.
Now he's emphasizing the one aspect of we have to realize that everything exists because that's how God said it.
Right, and that gives us the potential to actually turn things around, because otherwise it leads to bad places. Well, I guess that's
that thing. So it's necessary to be able to accept that, right? In order to understand that ultimately God is good. Now, the opposite we also have to understand, which is not what he's talked about now yet. He's not talking about here, which is that even though we need to accept it, that what has happened is from God, it should not keep us from praying to God and working towards making the situation better. That's something different he hasn't mentioned, which you were like, how is this not a conflict? In a sense, it is a conflict.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's an eternal conflict.
Yeah, I mean, so if we continue this deep dive or tangent, it just reminds me of, I just listened to Rabbi Gottlieb talk, mentions an example of a book that he read about a woman that that is an extraordinary person, that this reporter or the author of this book, of this biography, asked her, do you have any moments or times of sadness or grief in your life? And this woman, this is a woman that went through the camps and saw her parents die in front of her eyes, or shot in front of her eyes. And this woman says, no, not I don't think so. And the reporter says, but weren't you there when they killed your parents, and like in the camps there was no. And she said, what do you mean? I mean, like, my parents died kiddush Hashem, like serving or sanctifying God's name. And there might be two ways of looking at this. One is, let's say, bad faith, or if from one position you can say this woman is detached, completely detached, like she was how can you see your parents die and not have any sadness or anything like that? But in some way, but on the other side, you can say she's reached such a high level that I can't even think how to get there. So, but I think that's assuming, we're also assuming here that it's not like she would be happy to see her parents or people around her move to that move into that event, or like that event transpiring. It's like, if you have the effort if you have the possibility of preventing that from happening, or you don't want to get to that point or something like that. So I mean, I think that's the point here, right? Like, that's the point of, like, you might recognize that it's good, but it's not like you're like, I'm just gonna let this ride as if it's like this is the plan and I have no.
Right. So this is one of the explanations that I really love about when Moses asks God, I want to see your face, and God says, you cannot see my face and live, but you can see the back, right? So the explanation is that a person can't see these things from the forward and live and make decisions, but from the back, once it has already passed, right? We need to realize that it was the best, and we need to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's an aspect of time there that reconciles these two things.
Yeah. Okay, was I reading? Right.
You were reading.
וזהו עיקר האמונה שבשבילה נברא האדם. And this is the essence of the faith for which man was created. להאמין דלת. Delate. Why is there a thing? Why is there delate?
Shine, because it's actually a quotation mark.
Okay. Delate atar panui minea.
Mine.
To believe that there is no place void of him, that God is everywhere. Ubiur pnei melech chaim, and in the light of the king's countenance there is life. Valken oz v'chedva b'mkomo. Accordingly, strength and gladness are in his place. Hoil v'hu rak tov kol hayom, because he is but good all the time. ועל כן, ראשית הכל, שישמח האדם ויגאל בכל עת ושעה. Therefore, first of all, man ought to be happy and joyous at every time and hour. ויחיה ממש באמונתו בהשם המחיה ומטיב עמו בכל רגע. And truly live by his faith in God, who animates him and acts kindly toward him at every moment. ומי שמתעצב ומתאונן, but he who is grieved and laments, מראה בעצמו שיש לו מעט רע וייסורים, demonstrates that he is undergoing some hardship and suffering, וחסר לו איזו טובה, and lacks some goodness, והרי זה ככופר חס ושלום. He is like a heretic that denies God's omnipresence. I mean, I'm laughing because this is it's very dramatic, but I mean, I get the point. ועל כן הרחיקו מידת העצבות במאוד חכמי האמת. This is why the sages of truth, the Kabbalists, strongly rejected the trait of sadness. אבל המאמין לא יחוש משום ייסורין בעולם. The truly faithful, however, is not perturbed by any suffering whatsoever. ובכל ענייני העולם, הן ולאו, שווין אצלו בהשוואה אמיתית. And with respect to all mundane matters, yes and no are all the same to him in true equality. ומי שאין שווין לו, but he to whom they are not the same, מראה בעצמו שהוא מערב רב די לגרמהו אבנין. Demonstrates that he is one of the Erev Rav who act but for themselves. So one of the how do you call them?
The mixed multitude.
Mixed multitudes, yeah. ואוהב את עצמו לצאת מתחת יד השם ולחיות בחיי הגויים. He loves himself to the extent that he removes himself from under the hand of God and lives the life of Gentiles. בשביל אהבתו את עצמו, all because of his self-love. ועל כן הוא חפץ בחיי בשרים ובני ומזוני. This is why he desires the life of the flesh and children and sustenance. כי זה טוב לו. For that is his good. ונוח לו שלא נברא. Indeed, it would have been better for him had he not been created. כי עיקר בריאת האדם בעולם הזה, for the main purpose of man's creation in this world, הוא בשביל לנסותו בניסיונות אלו, is to test him by these trials and physical tribulations. ולדעת את אשר בלבבו, to ascertain what is in his heart. אם יפנה לבבו אחרי אלוהים אחרים, whether his heart will turn towards other gods, שהם תאוות הגוף המשתלשלים מסדרה אחר ובהם הוא חפץ. Namely, the passions of the body which evolve from the sitra acha and desire these. או אם חפצו ורצונו להיות חיים אמיתיים המשתלשלים מאלוקים חיים. Or whether his desire and wish is to live the true life which evolves from the living God. ויאמין שבאמת הוא חי בהם. One must believe that he truly lives it, the true life. וכל צרכיו וכל ענייניו משתלשלים באמת בפרטי פרטיותיהם שלא מסדרה אחת. And that all his needs and everything related to himself truly evolve in all their details, not from the sitra acha. כי מהשם מצעדי גבר כוננו. For by God are the steps of man made firm. ואין מילה וכולי. And while there is no yet word on my tongue, God knows it all. ואם כן, הכל טוב בתכלית, רק שאינו מושג. Accordingly, like we said, everything is absolutely good, except that it is not apprehended as such by men. ובאמונה זו באמת, נעשה הכל טוב גם בגלוי. When one believes this truly, everything becomes good, even on a revealed level. שבאמונה זו שמאמין שהרע נדמה בגלוי, for by such a faith, in which one believes that what manifestly seems to be evil, כל חיותו הוא מטוב העליון. In fact, that evil receives or what seems to be evil receives an entire vitality from the supreme good. שהיא חוכמתו יתברך שאינה מושגת. i.e. from God's חוכמה, which is not apprehensible. והיא העדן שמלמעלה מעולם הבא. And which is the Eden that transcends the world to come. הרי באמונה זו נכלל ומתעלה באמת הרע המדומה בטוב העליון הגנוז. By this faith, the imagined evil is truly absorbed and sublimated in the concealed supreme good, so that the good becomes palpably revealed to the physical eye. Interesting. Epistle 12.
Epistle 12. Are we gonna?
Yeah, I think we'll leave that for next week.
We'll leave this for next week.
Yeah.
Okay. Next week we start with 12.
Sounds good. This is very good. I might get the Steinsaltz by then. We'll see.
Rabbi Steinsaltz was a good guy. He was a good guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I am going to land this plane.
Please do.